Okay, so we're starting with a review problem. It's going to be a little different than normal. The kids are talking to each other about what the answer to this one would be. Why is it different than normal? Well, look on the bottom here. In the past, it would have been something simple like x plus 1. And then everybody would know that negative 1 would cause a problem for this function. But why does it cause a problem? It's because the thing that makes the bottom 0 is important. And in this case, it's negative 1. So then what makes this one 0? All right, so the domain of this thing is all real numbers work except whatever would make the bottom 0, the denominator. What would make the denominator 0? If x was negative 1/2. So I gotta say that x cannot be negative 1/2. Raise your hand if you figured that out. Awesome. Then the vertical asymptote is that, because you know this, it's either a whole or an asymptote, and there was nothing to cancel on the top. And if you're thinking these two cancel, you still haven't learned that they can't be part of an add problem. So those x's do not cancel. They do not make a whole. All right, but so if it's not a whole, it must be the vertical. And then last but not least is the horizontals. Is this a bob, sob, or a bot? It's tempting to say it's bigger on the bottom because it's 2x, but no, it's about the degree. So it's same on both. So since it's a sob, same on both, then you do the ratio of the lead coefficients, which would be a 1 and a 2, so it's 1/2. All right, now, this is not an easy one because the vertical was a little weird, and the horizontal is also a fraction. But if you had to graph those, would you agree that the y equals 1/2 is just like above 0, right? And x equals negative 1/2, well, it's just to the left of where it would normally be. And then if I had to graph this, I would need a couple points, one on each side of the vertical. So would you please put the vertical, which is negative 1/2, on your XY chart, and then find me 2 points. One to the left of the vertical, and one to the right of the vertical. They don't have to come out to nice, clean, whole numbers like integers. They can come out as decimal points, but find me 2 points. Graphing will be marked wrong a lot because kids have trouble finding points. So take this part very seriously. Can you find me 2 points? Okay. I'm going to tell a number that you should have probably used. Something that's a little bigger than 1/2 and something that's a little smaller than 1/2. Again, here's negative 1/2 right here. That's where that line's going through, right? So to the left of it would be something like negative 1. And to the right of it would be something like 0. Did you have to use those two numbers? No. But you should have been to the left of it and to the right of it. I think those would be pretty logical ones to pick. So if I do put negative 1 here and here, I'd have negative 1 over negative 1 plus 1. Wait a minute. Negative 2 plus 1, there we go, which is negative 1. And negative 1 divided by negative 1, which is 1. Who had negative 1, 1? Awesome. Then, let me just graph it. Negative 1, 1 would be right there. Okay. Now, I'm going to put in 0. If I put in 0, I get 0 over 0 plus 1. 0 over anything is 0. Unless it's 0 divided by 0, and then it doesn't exist. Okay, so this is 0 comma 0, which is right there. Look at that. From here, you just need asymptotic behavior. You'd like go closer and closer, never touch, closer, closer, never touch, closer, 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 closer. And there would have been my graph. Except I just did it wrong. Because I forgot something important. Oh, crap. Well, I'm going to just ask you this. Did you even look and see if there was a hole? Because if you did, then you win. But I hadn't even thought about the hole, and I was like, ooh, there was a hole in this one, and then I was wrong. There isn't a hole. That's a really common mistake, to kind of get so obsessed with my resulting function that I don't even look to see if there was a hole. And I hadn't looked. But there actually wasn't a hole, so I lost, but then I got lucky. There wasn't a hole. What if there had been a hole at like 2? Then I hope you know, you just go over to where 2 would be and put an empty spot. Make sure it's empty. Don't put this on your graph though, because we didn't actually have a hole there. I'm just reminding you, very common to have holes in the graphs on this test, okay? All right, next one I want you to do with me is a common denominator, except I'm making it as tricky as possible, but not too tricky for what we would test you on. About the hardest common denominator I could see us doing. Make them have a common denominator, put them all together. Only one kid came in this morning, which is totally fine. Gave me a super easy morning. But that means, I think you're doing fine. So, I'd study a little extra tonight. Would you agree that if you're going to be sitting at home for 2 weeks, it'd be more fun to be looking at an A in the grade book than a C for 2 weeks? Okay, I'm going to pause this. I'll take attendance. And I'd love for you, when you're done, check with the kid next to him. When they're done, talk it over. All right, here we go. So I'm hoping you noticed that there was an x plus 1 in common. That means part of a common denominator. But this one needed an x. Now, you could have done this a different way. That would have been way harder. Okay, but this would have been the easy way. See, I have a common denominator now. All right, there's another way, and as long as you simplified it at the end, it would be okay. Now on the top, -1 minus all that, -1 minus, is it just x? No, it's going to get multiplied by the other x, and that would make -x squared. And then -2 times the x, which makes -2x. Now, I'm going to move that -1 to the end, because that's where it really should be. Because you're supposed to put them in order from the biggest power on down. Now, did you factor the top? I bet you some people didn't. Take a second and factor out that negative, and I think you're going to see, I think it might factor all the way. Like negative parentheses. Keep the bottom factored, because, you know, if you can factor it, you should. X squared plus 2x plus 1, and then doesn't that factor into x plus 1 and x plus 1? I think it does. So now, I'll bring this negative up here. So this is gone now. It's been factored. And then the x plus 1 here and the x plus 1 here can cancel. The simplified function is negative x plus 1 over x. Who got it all the way to the end? All right, that's 2/3 of you at least. Okay, if you didn't get it, do you know what you did wrong? That's key. All right. Okay, next kind. What if you had a big old dividing fractions problem? Does this need a common denominator when you are dividing? Yes or no? No, it does not need a common denominator when you're dividing. That's one of the most common mistakes. But my constant banging the drum of factoring hopefully has gotten you to the point where you will factor it before you even do anything. Because if you can factor it, you should. All right, I did the factoring here, and now I'm asking the students to actually do the canceling and show what's left. But remember, leave it in factored form. You don't have to do all the work of multiplying that out, because if you can factor it, you should. All right, compare with the kid next to you, please. So there's my answer. That's wrong, but I know some people probably put that. You know what's wrong about it? You can cancel off that x. If you like, I don't get when you can and can't cancel. This is being multiplied on both sides of it. That's a multiply. And this, you could say it's times 1, right? So then these can cancel. So then it's 2x plus 3, and there's nothing on the bottom, so I can just say that, or I can say over 1. That's not wrong, but it's supposed to be simplified all the way, so there's my final answer. Or 2x plus 6, of course. Who got it all the way there? Okay, good. Now, can you factor by grouping? X to the third plus 4x squared. I also like to call this divide and conquer. Happened in war all the time. Divide up, get the other guy faked out so you can go against half of his army with your whole army. Divide it up in 2 parts. Okay, that was all fine. Got to there, but if you didn't keep going, you're wrong. Because this factors one more time. X plus 3, x minus 3, and an x plus 4. All right. You feeling okay about divide and conquer? Okay. Then, last melon. The graphs. You can't get an A on this next test without being able to graph. All right, so let's just imagine you had to graph this. 2x times x minus 1 over x minus 1. I know you can factor, so you would have got that far. So, if you're like, but I don't know how to get the, like the points on it. Well, you can always make an XY chart. And don't forget, there's a hole too. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, hopefully you know that these parentheses on the bottom are there. They're called implied parentheses. So then that can cancel that. And then there's 2 kinds of kids right now. The ones who rewrote y equals 2x to make it really clear what they're supposed to be graphing, and kids who didn't. I found that the kids, I grabbed 5 tests from last year where the kid normally was an A student, but he got like a D. And I looked at their graphs, and every single one of them had not written that. So they didn't really know what they were graphing. Okay, so now, do you know how to graph y equals 2x? I get how you might have forgot, but if you had nothing else, you could make a chart and goes, I put in 0, I get 0. So it goes 0, 0, 0. I put in 1, I get 2. I put in 2, I get 4. I put in -1, and I get -2. And you could just graph those points, and you'd see, oh yeah, it's a straight line that has a slope of 2. Yay, I've graphed it. Wrong, because I forgot to put in the hole. And the hole's at 1. Remember, 1 would make this thing die. So if I put in a 1, I go up above 1, and I put in the hole right there. There you go. Okay, now I want to give you a bunch of time to work. So find the homework for today. It's a worksheet, and then I'm going to tell you it's a little too long. And normally on review days I assign the whole thing, but this is just too long. So went through carefully, looked at it, found the ones that I feel like you wouldn't have to do, So find it, and then I'll tell you which ones to skip. I'll write them to the video. They are written on the board, but I'll read them in case you're gone today and you want to take the test tomorrow and know what we skipped for homework. You should skip 1, part G and H. So you can go ahead and find 1G and 1H and cross them off. On number 2, you can skip H and I and J. On number 3, oh wait, I read it wrong. Sorry, that's 2 is E, F, G, H. Sorry, E, F, G, and H. On to number 3 was H, I, J. Number 4, you can skip letter D. And number 5, no skips. What does that tell you about that section? It's important. Very good. And I think kids will kind of generally struggle in that area. So you should practice. So one tendency of students is to go strong until you get to 3/4 of the way through, and then you run out of gas, and then you're like, I just never finished the most important section at the end. Okay, so if you're really smart, you might actually go start with the problem 5, just because I said it's a really important section, and you don't want to run out of gas and never get to the most important section. Okay, so do what you want, finish this up, grade it like normal with the key, and put your own score out of 10 on top. And then you could bet I'm going to put this in the grade book. The reviews are really, really, really important. And if a kid skips the review, it's important evidence for why they didn't do well on their tests. So do it. Grade it. Learn from your mistakes. Last thought. Kids sometimes are like, well, I got one of them wrong, and I don't know what to do to practice. You can always unskip one of these problems, Just because I said to skip 1G, if you need practice on that kind, do it. Okay, enough said. I hope you come up and ask me questions. That's all I got for you for today. Test is tomorrow.